When a psychic attack or possession attack or a poltergeist attack or some kind of disturbing phenomena occurs and continues, there is often no discernible cause. You investigate a situation and ask a lot of questions. The things that I look for example, somebody in the house went on a haunted tour of an old mental asylum or a prison or something like that, somewhere where they could have picked up a negative entity. If there had been serious arguments and upsets in a family or with friends or in business, those sort of things can cause attacks. But often you go into a situation where you have a very normal home, mum and dad, some children, clean living people, nice people, and there's nothing that you can come to grips with that would, through my experience of dealing with this a lot over decades, could tell me that this probably caused it. Sometimes you have nothing to work with. And in cases like that, I think there are a number of things which can be attributed to the attack happening. It can be the DNA in your own body, in a family, can be the cause. Understand that through your DNA and the flesh of your body, you have a direct connection with your mother and your father, and through them a direct connection to your grandfather and grandmother on both sides, all the way back for millions of years. This is like the past life argument, but this is more traceable. You could say it seems to be more logical in a sense. The past life thing, I'll talk about that later, but it's your direct physical connection to your ancestors is a very powerful thing. It's actually fairly easy to see some of your ancestors if you have the right lighting and you sit in front of a big mirror in candlelight behind you and you gaze at yourself, unfocus your eyes and slip into a relaxed state. You will start to see after 5 or 10 minutes little faces appearing in the cloud around you. You will start to see faces over your face, and your face may be very, very calm, like your eyelids drooping as you're gazing ahead, but you will see faces come over you which are moving. They'll move to the side visibly, and you'll see the lips moving if they're trying to talk, and around you you'll see little cameo pictures appearing all around you, dozens of them sometimes, and the face over yours will change from time to time, sometimes every few seconds. And some of the people you'll see will be male or female. They could be of different races, sometimes even different species. You will see ET faces appearing over you, extraterrestrials, and all kinds of things. And this is quite common. It's quite easy phenomenon to produce, particularly if you have a group of people where you have one person and you sit them up against a matte black background and you have the lighting very low, and then you can move around and closer and adjust the focus of your eyes. If you're observing this person, it's like you're trying to observe their aura. But during that process, you will start to see faces around a person. Let's say it happens quite a lot. There is more to creating a person, I think, than just an egg and a sperm combining and forming a new baby. Of course, grows over time to become a human being. I think at the moment of conception that a copy of the astral body of the mother and the astral body of the father are also combined into that being. And as this has been going on for hundreds of millions of years, that everybody contains thousands of their ancestors going back hundreds of millions of years, because every baby that is conceived this is all added to. the astral body of the mother and the father each contain copies of their ancestors as well, and these are combined. And I think this is a level of existence which is very little is understood about it. Ancestor attachments are generally benign, and it's almost like most of the ancestors inside of you are asleep. They just exist there. It's like a little thought form snapshot of each of your ancestors existing in your energy field, you could say. And these things do epigenetically affect us. Things from the past, from our ancestors, do affect us today. They can affect us physically, they can affect us mentally, psychologically as well. And traits as well, with traits of our ancestors, but more so than just physical traits passed on by the physical body, also psychological traits as well. And also keep in mind maybe the age and activity of your ancestors as well, in the sense that how developed each of your ancestors were on the scale of things. So some ancestors in this way are stronger and can have more of an influence upon us than most of our ancestors could be normal working people that, you know, just sitting there in silence. They wouldn't really understand. They don't really exist. It's almost like a moving snapshot, as I said, like a semi-living thought form. Tiny little things, you know. This could have an evolutionary purpose to help us evolve over time, and that does make sense, that we are a culmination of the combined experience of our ancestors, and that is an influence on us. But there are downsides to this as well, in the sense that if you are cursed or something terrible happens to you in the past, maybe hundreds or thousands of years ago, and a human being or an entity curses you, this can cause problems in the now, even though it happened thousands of years ago. A curse, particularly if laid by somebody with psychic ability, even if they don't know about it, and worse, of course, if it's laid by an occultist of any kind, a witch, for example. A curse can last for millennia and can be as powerful today as it was when it was laid thousands of years ago. For example, maybe hundreds or thousands of years ago, one of your ancestors was involved in witch hunting and torturing and burning witches or things like that. And a witch, if a witch lays a death curse upon you, it's a very, very powerful curse. And thousands of years later, it's still in force. And it could stay in force for millions of years. Or unless your family line dies out, that is, it will just continue being passed down through the DNA, as I was saying, like just like your ancestors, you have a curse laid upon you, which in a way attaches to your DNA. In a way, I'm saying here, you know, we're looking at spiritual forces here that may or may not affect that, but it's a good analogy to use, something that we can cling to in our mind and help to understand this process here. But a curse can be the root cause of negative attacks, entity attacks, and bad luck, depending on the nature of the curse. It, you know, can affect some people in a family line and not all of them. It may affect only the first son or the first daughter, depending on the formulation of the curse. It may affect everybody, and a curse can either grow or it can shrink away, depending on the lifestyle and beliefs of the people it's being passed on to. Curses can also be laid by humans, human onto human here, but particularly by a person that tends to brood, a person that holds grudges, a person that is vengeful. that type of person, that's the profile, the psychological profile of a person who has what is called the evil eye. And the evil eye is a person that if they don't like someone, they say they look upon you in a certain way, and they'll go home and brood upon you and maybe stick needles in a doll expressing their hatred of you. And if they have any psychic abilities, this can precipitate a psychic attack on that person in the now, as long as they're focusing on that person. Now, if the person involved has any agreements or contracts or spirit attachments, these spirits, entities may get involved in that brooding attack, so that when you psychically attack them while you're brooding about them and sticking pins in your voodoo doll, the entities automatically go and attack that person. For one, it may be a part of the agreement with the human being doing this, that they automatically protect or follow the will of this person. It can also be opportunity, because the psychic attacker is connecting to these people, and it offers a clear pathway to that person where they can torment them, attack them, possibly even feed on that person, feed on their life force, their energy. And this can often be at the root of a paranormal haunting type phenomena that's occurring on a family, and these can be the causes where no other cause is apparent. Nothing you could identify that is a cause, and this is what I generally look at when I'm analysing a psychic attack. Now, also another part of this is when a person hates somebody. If somebody has done something terrible to them and they die hating a person, maybe this person destroyed their family or their career or their business or something, did something really evil to them, a person can die with that hatred in them. And after death, in the afterlife, that person can continue hating that person, continue wishing vengeance on that person. And as a ghost, they have much more power to inflict suffering upon the person, the object of their hatred. And so this person after death may continue as a ghost, attacking this person and trying to get revenge. Now, if this continues for a very long time, if the person they hate dies in the situation, being involved with the family and that up close and personal, the attacking ghost can continue attacking other family members, and this can continue down the generations even. A vengeful ghost, a hungry ghost like this can, stick with a family, follow down for the generations, expressing its vengeance. But during this process, a person can become what they are doing, I think, given the nature of the afterlife and metaphysics and spirituality. If you have a ghost that is focused very strongly on one particular thing and on doing one particular thing, after a long period of time, they forget who they are and they become their hatred. So in this sense, a ghost that was once a normal human being can become another evil spirit, another negative entity. It may, in a very long period of time, even become a type of demon. And it has, forgotten everything about when it was alive as a human being. Why does God allow this? A question I am frequently asked. And it's worth thinking on. Why, if the nature of God and the divine is all about love and mercy and good things, why does God allow bad things to happen, particularly in this case, bad spiritual things to happen? Why are there demons? Why are there evil spirits, negs? Why? We would like things to be really lovely, and we would like there to be, spirit brothers and protectors so we're safe. But the nature of life is not safe all the time. It's not safe everywhere. Even in your life now, you may have a very safe life in the modern world, but people still get run over by buses and have accidents and things like that, unavoidable. Big life-changing experiences happen to people all the time. Part of the reason for, you could say, to understand why people keep asking this question is that we can't see the big picture. We can't see the big picture. We don't know the future and what will happen to us in the future. For example, going back 30 odd years when all these big events happened to me, including demonic possession and very, very difficult time, I could not see the future. I had a lot of faith, but I could not see the future. I didn't know where that would lead or why it was happening. I could barely guess at it. But now, in hindsight, looking back, I can see it very clearly. All of the bad things that happened to me in my life are parts of me. They brought on a lot of epiphanies, a lot of insights, a lot of understanding. And in the fullness of time, when I put it all together, I realised that I've made a really big contribution to the world, and that already my books have helped hundreds of thousands of people, particularly in the areas of psychic self-defense and things like that. So, and I'm still going. I'm nowhere near finishing my life project yet. But the bad things in my life that happened to me a long time ago are all a part of that. If these bad things hadn't have happened to me, I'd probably be happily married, working somewhere, just living like an average Joe. And I'd live and die like an average Joe, and a short time after I die, nobody would even remember the ripples I made. There's nothing left of me. But this way in my life, although it's been brutally difficult, I am making a difference. I am making the world a better place in my way. I hope that helps to understand this, because if you look at God, which is source, which is in everything, you've got to take a much, much broader, larger view than having a person, godlike person sitting in the clouds somewhere. That's way too small. If you think the entire universe is God, God is in every molecule in the universe. We are all a part of God. Maybe a galaxy exists in God's right finger, somewhere near the second knuckle. I don't know. But it's very, very big. And it's not what we think it is, the nature of reality. If you're a religious type, you can understand why God would create angels and good spirits and masters. But God also created demons and negative entities and evil spirits. I mean, there's a reason for that. And in essence, this is true. Everything has its equal in the universe. For every angel, there is an equal or opposite demon. And all the way down this hierarchical structure there, which provides balance to the universe. And the interactions between the positive aspects of the universe and the negative aspects of the universe, angels and demons if you like, the interaction between those two forces is where evolution takes place. These brutal battles fought between angels and demons, metaphorically and in reality, you could say, are for a reason. These things produce life-changing experiences and epiphanies and totally alter the courses of lives. Our universe would not. If you removed all of the negatives and all of the evil from the universe, the human race, and probably the rest of the universe too, would probably die out over a period of time, largely through boredom. You know, because if we don't have the stimulus, if we don't have adversity to conquer, then what is the point of life, and where is the interest in life? Where is the drive to overcome adversity, going beyond our limits? It's all taken away. And yeah, we could sit down with sheep and lions and things and drink the milk of human kindness, but I'm sure that eventually that would get really, really boring. Another way of looking at this is, imagine if you had a spectrum that had only white and black was completely eliminated. With only white, you would not have colour. The massive spectrum of colour would not exist. And the opposite applies as well. If you only had black and you didn't have any white, colour would not exist. You know, opposites are necessary sometimes, like positive and negative. You cannot have a magnet unless you have both positive and negative poles. It can't exist in physics. You know, and all throughout science, study the universe, you come across a lot of necessary opposites, and I think the nature of the spiritual universe and how it's, you could say, how it exists, how it's designed, how it operates is necessary for its existence and for human existence as well. Angels and masters and good spirits do exist. I want to make that very, very clear. Through personal experience, my whole life, I have many times encountered angels. I've seen them, had some interaction with them. I've been involved with rituals with them. I've also encountered spirit masters, and many times, and they do exist. Even though, by and large, masters and angels and good spirits appear to have something like a general non-interference policy, they still exist. There is, unfortunately, no spiritual police force that I have been able to identify in any way, shape or form in my entire life of exploring this and the astral dimension. When I first started having astral projections as an adult, when I was about 20, that was first on my list. Go out there and try and make contact, and to go out and get in touch with some of the spiritual hierarchy, the massive structure that I believed absolutely had to exist around the world. There should have been literally millions of spirits and guides and masters flying everywhere. But when I got out into the astral, there was nothing. I found it a very lonely place. Now, some spirits will help. Some spirits will help only if they are directly asked. I mean, even if you don't know that they are there, spirits, angels, masters around you watching something bad is happening, you hope there's something around that can hear you, and you make a prayer in your mind or with your voice, and you ask for, please God help me, or angels please help me. Doesn't really matter what you call them. But sometimes it's only when you ask for help is instantly given. But it's not reliable. Sometimes nothing will happen. And when I don't get any help and something bad is happening, I understand that, I didn't always, but I understand that I'm going through a life-changing experience, one of the really big life lessons that happened to us, and this is going to change me if I survive. Now, some of these experiences, of course, survival is not a given, and that is the nature of life. But I survived, and it changed my life, and I've survived things like this many, many times in my life. Now, I must say, things are getting better as I'm getting older, but a part of that is also wisdom that comes with age and the gentleness and the maturity that comes with it. I'm much less gung-ho than I used to be when I was a younger man. Even though I'm saying that there is no spiritual, angelic police force available running around arresting evil spirits and things like that when they're found. Things like that do happen, but it's very variable, depending upon a lot of factors, some of which I'm not aware of. But sometimes, if you ask for help, you will get help. Sometimes help will appear even if you haven't asked for it. But sometimes you can beg and grovel and ask and plead and do rituals, whatever you know, to get help, and nothing will happen. You'll have a negative entity of some type running amok, and you can't stop it. And in cases like that, to reiterate, it's like you need to go through this experience for some reason we don't understand. So understanding that in a practical way is very, very helpful when you're dealing with these sorts of situations. Now, we always try to get help. We try to contact the angelic police force, but we need to know that it won't always work, and then we have to fall to other resources. This may be some kind of an educating experience, some kind of a test we're going through that we need to find a way to overcome it without any help. And we have a little bit of faith in the back of our mind that if things get too bad, right at the last second, a giant hand will come down and pull us back and save us, which sometimes is the case, and it's happened to me many times. Looking at life for what it really is, life is like a big wilderness reserve. And in this reserve, there are a few gamekeepers running around in jeeps and Land Rovers with guns, occasionally catching or shooting predators and that to save deer and other animals and things. But they're spread pretty thinly, and occasionally they'll turn up. But generally you're alone, and you have to fall back on your own resources and work things out for yourself. At the root of this issue is the understanding of who and what you are, who and what I am. And living in this world, you pick up all these impressions and ideas, and you get some idea that we are like created children of God. We're special, very special, and from that grows the need for guardianship and advice and all these divine things. But in truth, in rock bottom reality, you are an animal. I am an animal. In fact, I'm a human biped. I'm a mammal. This is a very, very good place to be before you start exploring who and what you are. This is right at bedrock. Nothing added, nothing taken away. I'm an ape. Go from there, and you will find that your bias in how you look at things and your expectations and your preconditioning is no longer there. I'm an animal, this is happening. Now, using the wilderness reserve analogy I've just used, predators are necessary to keep a wilderness population healthy. If you look at what has happened to Yellowstone National Park in the USA over the last 100 years, at some point, a long time ago, they removed all the wolves. And over a very, very long time, everything started to fall apart. This affected not only the animals, the deer and the beaver and everything, because there's no wolves around, they bred out of control. The out of control population getting bigger damaged the landscape, damaged the environment, polluted the environment. And a few years ago, I saw that they reintroduced the wolf population again, and they're doing very, very well, and everything's going back to how it should be, back to balance. The tribes of deer are in balance of the right number, the environment is healing, everything is not getting polluted anymore. It's beautiful and everything is thriving. But you have to understand here there are certain conditions need to be in place, and some of them that we don't like in order for us to thrive. We have adversity, we need predators, which we don't like to think of. I mean, we don't like to think that there are sharks out there and mountain lions and wolves and things like that when we go hiking in the park or when we go swimming. But they do exist, and they will occasionally do their job and eat somebody. It does happen. Now, the evolutionary value of that, in a sense there, human beings being an apex predator, that happens very rarely, so it's not really useful in the sense of how predators can be useful. But I think it is possible that negative spirit beings, evil spirits, demons and things like that are natural predators beneath the scenes, something that we human beings, we can control every aspect of our environment to a very, very high level. But this is one thing, the astral dimension, spirituality, spiritual entities and how they affect us, one thing that we cannot possibly control. Even though I try to find ways to tip the balance, to improve our understanding of these things and their behaviors and how they work, and things that we can do which counter them. This is my countermeasures that drive them away, stop them from doing what they're doing to give us a better chance. But this is also a part of natural selection, a part of nature. You've got the predators out there, and you've got things to balance the predators with as well. Like a herd of deer, they run faster. They evolve so that they can run faster and jump higher. And they also learn things. So they don't do this because it's a wolf trap. So they do it another way. They learn to do that. They evolve to do it in different ways. And the end result is everybody's happy. The wolves are happy. The deer are happy. The beavers are happy. Everything's happy. And living in perfect balance together, which is what we're trying to do here, with negative entities. As I've said before, we know about 1% about negative entities and spiritual beings in general. I've studied this my entire life, over half a century, and I probably know 5 or 10%. But most of what I have to say to people disagree with because of their religious New Age type bias, where these things are not supposed to happen, therefore they don't happen. This is not real, you're wrong. But I've lived this, it's demonstratable, it's repeatable, person after person. Like, people may believe that running water won't help, it's ridiculous. But then I take child after child across running water, screaming children, distressed people, and time again. At the exact point as they cross running water, they straighten up, the problem's gone. The baby suddenly quietens down instantly, and it's goo goo gaga, happy, smiling, tired baby, time and time again. Then you have to ask yourself, if I'm right about things like this, what else am I right about? There are things that people ask me frequently about my work, and some of those questions involve karma, sacred contracts, past life agreements, spirit agreements and things like that. Well, I don't deny that things like this probably do exist. I do have some experience there. I don't focus on these because when you're dealing with a subject like practical psychic self-defense, the experience tells me that things like that are not particularly useful by way of a countermeasure. It may be comforting or interesting to know these things, but it won't get rid of the ET invaders in your living room. A shotgun will. It's practical. If you look back to the grandpappy's shotgun analogy I did earlier, so I try to look for things like that and running water and things that anybody can do with no prior training or experience. You don't need to spend a couple of years training for 1 hour a day in order to do this particular ritual, which will protect you, because the vast majority of people are not going to do it. They can't do it. They're incapable of doing it, and they need something to work right now. And this is why I tend to focus upon things. I do discuss things like having agreements from other lives. You may have agreements with your own higher self, with yourself, of things that you are going to do in this life or the next, things that you are going to experience, you're going to learn from. And everything I'm talking about here, any kind of agreement or experience or event in your life, is all about your evolution. The evolution is something that makes more sense to me, and it's something you can work with and understand, and through that even develop countermeasures that work. It can be difficult to understand the nature of why psychic attacks and negative entity attacks occur. For many of them happen seemingly just at random. Apart from what I've already said about this, many attacks appear to happen because of vicarious behaviour by negative entities, random feeding, taking advantage of situations. Spontaneously an opportunity appears for a negative entity, and it takes advantage of that and moves and attaches to a person or attacks them, and feeding in some way, feeding on human life energy, seems to be the coin of the realm, and it appears to play a part with all negative entity attacks. Not so much with human on human, unless there is a negative entity involved in that equation, as there often is. But regardless of the type of the attack, some kind of feeding appears to go on. It can often be a matter of just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. For example, you take a haunted tour of an old prison or mental institution that is hundreds of years old maybe, and maybe thousands of people have been through that place, incarcerated. An old prison may have committed executions at some time, like the old prison in a city near here has hung hundreds of people over the time, and they do run haunted tours of that place, adding a little bit of hype to it. And I have had several people come to me over the years of taking these sorts of tours and coming to me with a full-on psychic attack that started during the tour. At some point, and these are particularly dangerous to take at night time, less dangerous in the daytime, but at some point during the tour they felt a cold draft overcome them and a tingling sensation, maybe a little bit of pain, headache or something comes on, and after that it progressively gets worse, and they've got bad thoughts in their head within hours, and they go home and the next day it's worse, and they're not sleeping, they're having nightmares, and it progresses from there. There's all different types of attacks from negs and all different reasons why they happen. But there are commonalities, like the feeding, like my major countermeasures working on electrical earthing and running water and things that actually work and are known to work in many situations. Your vulnerability to these things can also be related to your diet and health. Things like the consumption of wheat and the state of your immune system. I mean, your immune system can be compromised by eating too much wheat over a long period of time, your whole lifetime. And the opiates in wheat can open doorways in the mind, which expose you to other dimensions and different types of entities that can start coming through and influencing your behavior and even attaching to you and possessing you. And usually if you make some dietary changes by like removing wheat from your diet, eating a lot of organic food, after a few weeks the problems just go away. I'm talking more about this later in the program on diet and health. Permission plays a big part in neg attacks and neg invasions. This applies mainly to the higher negative entities, not in the lower, smaller ones, the more intelligent types of entities. Now, that type of entity cannot do much to a person unless they get permission. And the permission comes from you, but the permission is actually granted by your higher self, in a sense that your higher self holds all the keys. Now, permission that I'm talking about here is very much like the vampire legend, where a vampire cannot enter your house. It can knock on the door, get your attention, but it can't enter your house until you give it permission to enter your house. That's where it gets difficult, apart from the fact that you've got a vampire in your house. You cannot ask it to leave. Once permission is given, it's been given carte blanche to come and go from your house as often as it likes. There is some kind of fine print involved with giving permission, that even though you've given a simple yes to something or intimated it through some action, that once it's given, it's very, very difficult to revoke. Now, of course, efforts are used to revoke it, but it is a bit like manifestation and affirmations. You often have to give a lot of time and effort to doing this to get any kind of result. And sometimes it doesn't work at all, depending on the entity involved. But also keep in mind that your higher self holds all the keys here. And if permission has been given by you or intimated in some way, effectively giving permission, the higher self has allowed this, your higher self. And it allows this because one is you have asked the higher self that you want to experience this entity. You want this experience in your life, and it seems to be how your higher self takes this. Now, I can only look at my own life when this all started and how it progressed, which we'll be talking about soon, what happened to me. And that it was instantaneous. I mean, I was giving healing to a 5-year-old boy with possession problems, and in exasperation at a certain point, I thought the idea appeared in my head. I know it was planted there now telepathically, but I thought the words, I didn't speak them. I thought them very clearly, and what I thought was, take me and release the child. And it did, instantly. It was literally like getting punched in the mouth by a boxer, painful. And I'll go into this more when I tell my story and coming up shortly. Again, your higher self seems to hold the keys for the gateways and entry points into your body and whether you experience something or not. And there's various ways of permission can be given. It can be given directly in the classical, the demon appears, the voice, you have something you desperately want, maybe a job, or you may be in love with somebody and really want to be with them, and in your mind you are saying, I really, really want this, and a voice appears in your head and says, I can get that for you, and it offers you a deal. even though the deal may not be stated. You got to watch that fine print. And you say, yes, anything. And the demon says, okay, I'll get it for you. The deal is done. You just shook hands on the deal without reading the fine print. You're now paying 75% interest over 100 years or something ridiculous that you don't know about. Ignorance is no excuse in this arena. You don't understand it, you didn't know what you were saying, it doesn't matter. You're nicked, you signed, use your thumbprint, it's indeletable, Now, I personally think that when demons do that and they offer you the classic deal with the devil, you sign it in blood and it gets burned up so you can't take it back. I think what the demon is actually doing, it is looking into the future clairvoyantly, and it sees something happening to you, like maybe you have separated from your girlfriend or boyfriend, and it sees in some point in the future, a few months ahead there, you reconciling for a while, and it's lying to you. This is what these things do. It's offering you something it's not going to do. It's not going to take any action, because what you're agreeing to is already going to happen anyway, even if you'd rejected the demon and the offer it made. So you agree to this, and 4 weeks later your beloved one comes back and you reconcile for a while, maybe only for a week or two, and then it breaks up again. It's worse, but technically the demon has kept its word. You did reconcile, and it's not the demon's fault if it screwed up again and broke up. But now you've signed a contract and you owe something, whatever the demon wants. This is kind of how it is with all levels of neg entity attacks and attachments. It's the vague, the fine print is hidden, and you may not even have to speak a word. If you are sexually, for example, interfered with by a demon, the entity, you don't even know it's an entity. You may not even understand what's happening, but you're getting more sexual stimulation than you ever have done in your life. It's terribly addictive, very, very powerful. And what the entity is doing, it's directly stimulating your genital chakra, that no human being on the world could cause that much arousal in a person, or an orgasm as powerful as this, if you go with it. And if you go with it and you don't break this when it starts happening, you have just made an agreement. You've accepted this as part of the deal, and you've given a level of permission to this entity, and it will come back, and this will progressively increase until it's time for your first interest payment. And then you get to at least glimpse for half a second the fine print. And and you can look at this. Affects everybody to a greater or lesser extent, depending on how you live your life and who you are and what you believe in and what you do. It's kind of like materialistic people with no beliefs or understanding of this. It can be related to an insecure computer system, a network that's very insecure, which is very easily hacked and taken over by malicious hackers, as compared to a firewalled, antivirus infused network system, which you just can't hack because it's been carefully done. But you might find a master hacker could still get through, but they won't be able to do very much, maybe apart from reading some data or that. But they won't be able to take over it, they won't be able to destroy it or damage it in any way, which is often the case. There's also the case of hereditary attachments and the neg attacks that can result at a certain time in your life, which has been timed, or something happens or you do something which triggers this, which comes from another life. A negative entity could have been attached to your family line, directly for hundreds, even thousands of years. and under particular circumstances it will activate and begin attacking you for some obscure unknown reason. You could also liken this to giving permission, in past lives, which aren't related to your own DNA. Same thing applies here. If you have given permission in the past, it can carry on into other lives as well until it is removed effectively. Permission is a very important issue when you're dealing with negs and serious attachments, and it helps if you can find how the attachment occurred. As I said, fear is often used, and abuse, and like if you have two dogs fighting or two animals in nature, they fight until one loses and it exposes its belly and its throat as a sign that I submit. You can do anything you want to me, just please don't hurt me. You're throwing yourself on the mercy of the other animal. A similar sort of thing happens with neg attacks, where the neg will absolutely terrify you and torture you even until you belly up and say, please don't hurt me, and permission's been given of a certain level, interpreted by your higher self to allow a certain level of permission because you want to experience this. And at the back of it all is always your higher self and the idea that you may want to experience this. Looking back at my life, I never in a million years would have, at the time, agreed to anything like this. The many times I've been attacked and had things happen to me. But in hindsight now, looking back on it, I can see what happened to me was I was given a progressive education, which made these things that we're talking about here very, very real to me and to other people I've worked with as well. Once you experience it, it's like it suddenly becomes real. It's like a child and a fire. You can tell the child off as much as you like. The child is reaching into the fire, but it won't really understand that a fire is hot and burning until it actually touches something hot, and then it screams, blisters, pain. But the child's learned a valuable lesson, which could be is necessary for its survival here. I think every child does this, and probably always have done. And with negative entities, it's kind of like that as well. You get in this situation, permission's given, you're attacked for whatever reason, but you learn something from it. And if you survive it, which most people do, you've learned from it, and it will change your world. These are literally life-changing belief changes here are happening to you through very hard life experience on a spiritual level. You need to be very realistic when you're dealing with negative entities and psychic attacks and things that go bump in the dark. It is always more productive and helpful to focus on a cure as opposed to focusing on where it came from, why and how and who's to blame. Ideas like karma, which we talked about, past lives and beliefs and things like that, it may be comforting psychologically, but it doesn't really offer any solutions or a cure to the symptoms of what is actually happening. So again, it's more important to focus proactively on finding a cure to stop whatever it is that is happening. A good analogy for this, for a negative entity attack, is it's kind of like a virus that spreads from person to person. You look at an influenza virus, for example. People have random different levels of resistance to bacteria and to viruses and things like that. Some people, if their immune system is low, they get the disease and they get sick. Other people whose immune system is stronger are much more resistant, and the virus can't get a hold on them, so it washes over them, moves on to find somebody else. It's kind of like that in many cases. Angels and spirits, masters and the greater entities of the world will sometimes help without being asked. Occasionally they will step in and help something, and this again is like your higher self taking action. You know, at a certain point an angel appears, or a master, or a good spirit, and the problem stops. But in my life experience, having explored this, and pushed the envelope a lot, angels and masters and good spirits will usually not interfere unless they are directly given permission to do so. You need to actively ask out loud and in your mind for help. Even if you don't know what is around you, which is normally the case. You're in a bare room, something's happening, and you say a prayer, please God, the angels, please help me now. And if your higher self allows this, and these greater beings are near you, they will come and help. And the problem will just stop. Or there will be succour of some kind, some help given to you to get over it. When you're dealing with spirits and attacks, it is always worth trying to placate the spirit or the negative entity involved, trying to find out what they want. If you have a mediumistic person around, this can be very helpful. But try different ways to placate them, to make them happy, to move them on so they'll stop doing what they're doing. Many entities, including demons, will often, if you burn a candle for them and offer some flowers or something very, very simple, are quite happy and will move on their way after you do something like that. So this is worth exploring. I'll talk more about this further in the program.